we're not going back to 3% interest rates. We're not going back to pre-COVID occupancy rates. This is the new world we're in.
NAI Global presents How's Biz?
Greetings. Welcome to NAI Global's How's Biz podcast. I'm Gary Marsh. Today's guest is NAI Global's President and CEO, Jay Olshonsky. Jay is a SIOR, FRICS, and a CCIM. Jay, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Gary. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to see you and have you on. There's a lot to cover. One of the reasons we wanted to time the podcast with you is the company's about to release its annual global market trends and facts outlook, and it's packed with all kinds of information, country by country, everywhere that NAI Global has a presence, and covers some economics from each of those countries and major trends in real estate and impact in real estate. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on the show. So that's that. But starting with the international overlook, you and Cliff were in London last year with a meeting with the EMEA group, which is Europe, Middle East, and Asia. And I think you were just at MIPIM, and you've been personally traveling a little bit in France and England, but maybe give us some outlook of what your conversations with some of your international members have been, and kind of what they're feeling, their vibe, and what your outlook is for some other spots.
Sure. Well, certainly international business in particular, as we look at where we have offices pretty much throughout the world, but in particular, starting in Europe, there's a lot of things going on that are, let's say, concerning is probably the best word. I think that the United Kingdom is still getting used to Brexit, and I don't think it's 100% there yet. You've seen some movement from people in the United Kingdom, companies and firms and individuals, to Paris, to Frankfurt, and other places. So there's been some migration out. But at the same time, as you mentioned, I was in both London and Paris within the last couple of weeks, and I will tell you that the tourism and certainly the activity and people on the streets and people going out to dinner and going to museums and shows and different things like that, I actually commented a few times to my wife that I thought it was much more active in London than it was in New York City. And then certainly in Paris, you saw, we have the Olympics that are coming up in the next, I guess, 2 months. And Paris is kind of one big construction site still, getting ready for the Olympics. But again, my understanding is all the hotels are sold out. All of the, they're really looking forward to it. It's going to be quite an event. And when you talk to people about the event in Paris, they either can't wait to have people here and it's going to be wonderful, or I rented my house or my apartment out and I'm going to make a ton of money and I'm going to go vacation somewhere else. So it's kind of interesting what's going on currently right now in both, let's say, 2 of the largest cities, in Europe. But at the same time, there's lots of concern. There's, the war in the Ukraine is still lingering on. People are very concerned that isn't going to be settled up anytime soon. Certainly the Middle Eastern influence into Europe too, with the war in, certainly in Israel and in Gaza are concerning. And obviously we've seen major impact of that over in the United States, kind of through the protesting, both regular protesting and then on college campuses. So there's a lot of uncertainty that's still there. And so anytime you get uncertainty, just like in the United States, I think that's delaying business decisions. So even though you have some good retail activity through tourism and hotels and hospitality, you're not seeing a lot of movement in, let's say, the core commercial real estate areas, which would be industrial, or as they call it over there, sheds and logistics. or, unless it's related to the Olympics or something like that, even on retail. And then certainly in talking with our German partners, they're very concerned about what will happen with the United States election, and will the United States still be part of NATO? If they are part of NATO, that's wonderful. If we're not part of NATO, that creates a huge amount of uncertainty, as it relates to the Ukraine and other, let's say, countries that border upon the Ukraine. And it also puts a huge burden on the United Kingdom and France in particular, that have the major militaries over in Europe. And so, those are some of the things that I'm hearing from different people that I talk to, and both our members overseas and also just the general public. So, and then it really depends where, as you go further places in the international aspect. The Middle East, certainly what's going on in Israel has created a lot of tension, et cetera, throughout the whole Middle East. So that's something else. Africa has seen a whole lot of influence through, Chinese investment over there. And certainly I think there are areas that will grow. But then you're seeing, again, tourism, whether it's in, let's say Southern Europe, like Spain or Portugal, they're really coming back. Those are markets that weren't really that great, and now they're on an upswing. So, I think that the outlook is cautious and sort of hoping for the best. But, some of this stuff could change on a dime very quickly. They're having the same aspects of interest rates are higher, different things like that. They're having some of the same problems we have in the United States, where they have a tremendous housing shortage, especially in affordable housing in both a lot of these areas. And so far, there haven't been a lot of good answers to a lot of these things. So, I think internationally, it's sort of wait and see as we go. Obviously, every international market, just like the US market, will be highly dependent upon where and what type of real estate, what city, what political influences, what governmental influences, things like that.
Interesting. And here we've had for the last 18, 24 months, a dramatic drop in transaction volume. I don't want to presume or assume that's been the case in Europe, but I'm guessing so. Is that kind of what you got a sense from talking
That's
with?
correct. In general, transactions are down in general. Certainly both interest rates and work from home and different conflicts like Brexit, even that you're seeing, certainly the office tenant has returned to the office, but a lot of the office tenants just have too much space. So you're not seeing people moving as readily as before. So certainly you've seen some of the highest vacancies both in the United States and in Europe, in other areas in office. And lots of times it's in CBD offices. So, and with interest rates rising and tenants moving out of office buildings, you're seeing sort of a double whammy that unless it's Class A, really top of the market space, or renovated buildings that are just absolutely, the best in class, you're seeing all the tenants kind of move towards those buildings in all markets. And in some cases, like in New York City, the vacancy rate, whether it's on Park Avenue or whether it's in the A space, or the brand new trophy space, is actually very low. But as we all forget, that is just one component of the office market. I mean, Manhattan has 400 million square feet of office space and has a 20 plus or minus % vacancy. And yes, most of that vacancy is in, B, C, and D buildings, as I would call them, not in the A or not in the trophy. But that's still a lot of pain. That's still a lot of owners and lenders that are going to either lose buildings or have values taken to the, basically 90% off where they might have been before. Now that, of course, will create opportunities, and we're starting to see people come back in, whether it's the tenant that can make a lease deal, once in a lifetime lease deal, or an owner that loses a building, and then the next owner that comes in and maybe gets, something at 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. And as long as their hold period is indefinite or long enough, there's no question that, you can't bet against some of these CBD office areas, whether it's New York or Washington, D.C., even Chicago. Maybe you could argue San Francisco, but might be a little longer in the cycle. But you're starting to see people come back in and go, okay, at that price, I'll take a bet. But at the same time, you have sort of very interesting things going on. There was a building in St. Louis that sold recently for $3 million that, at one time it was worth 97% more than that. And it's a 1 million square foot building. It's the old AT&T building in downtown. The question comes in, who will go into that building? And then if you found someone to go into that building, how long will it take? Will it be 10 years? Will it be 5 years? And then, I remember one of our good partners, one of our best partners, when that building was available for $10 million about 5 years ago, I was talking to him about it. And I said, hey, that's pretty cheap. We should buy it. It's something like that. And he said, yeah, well, we could spend 10 million and still lose 5. Well, in this case, he was 100% right. We could have bought it for 10 million and we would have lost $7 million. So even though things are really cheap, doesn't mean they actually will pencil and how long it will take to pencil. You still have to carry it. You still have to maintain it. You still have to do all these different things. So, but then again, look, when New York City is on sale and the way it's on sale for some of these buildings, some of the generational families or generational funds that are really looking long term, they're going to be just fine. And, maybe it's not 5 years, maybe it's not 10 years, maybe it's not this cycle at all, but they will be fine. But there will be a lot of pain in all of these markets, really due to office space that is not needed. It's not about work from home anymore. It's about companies just don't need as much space. Some of it's from work from home, but it mainly is because a lot of these companies just took way too much space in the run up to the pandemic. And then it was a double whammy. I mean, when's the last time we heard about Google and Apple and, tech companies laying off software engineers? I can't remember ever. And that's what's happening. So there is an answer to this. We need net new office jobs. Now, I don't know what those are. We have low unemployment in the United States, which is fine. It's great. But most of the job growth that we've seen are in the United States is hospitality, is retail, it's construction, it's services type. It's not office where someone sits in an office. We don't see that changing anytime soon. A lot of people talk about artificial intelligence, and maybe that'll pick up a bunch of office jobs. But, I think I read a study, something that said even in San Francisco, that artificial intelligence jobs only make up less than 1% of that whole office market. And I can argue that that's great. Maybe there'll be net new office jobs there. But isn't the whole aspect of artificial intelligence is to use technology to not need to have a physical place that you have to go to? Isn't that one element of it? But
no, I don't disagree. However, I did hear someone, and I don't know if it's just talk or wishful thinking, but the comments were that AI jobs are going to require more in-person work because it's such an emerging technology that day-to-day connectivity, collaboration can really help those projects. That's one theory, and who knows if that's true or not, but
yeah, I mean, look, there's no question that anybody given the choice, even whether you're a 22-year-old brand new into the workforce or someone who's been in the workforce for 40 plus years, face-to-face is still better, always is better. But the question comes in, at what cost or at what convenience? I'm still finding that there's a whole bunch of companies and industries that have gone to what I would call the remote work from anywhere sort of thing. Even though someone still might have an office, they might not physically be in an office together at all times. So it remains to be seen. But this is a cycle. It's a cycle like anything else we've seen over, the last 30, 40 years. It's an off cycle, particularly in office right now. And but it will change. I mean, once all the trophy and A space gets leased up, guess what? They're going to have to go to the B space. So, it will start to filter down a little bit. And some people will be just fine. But, in the meantime, there's going to be opportunities and some pain.
Yeah. Speaking of the pain and America being on sale, in the past, we've frequently had international investors come in when America was at a discount for our commercial real estate. Have you really seen any evidence of that, or rumblings that you're hearing from, again, our international partners?
Well, at our convention earlier this year down in Frisco, Texas, we had Gunnar Branson, who's the head of the American Institute of Foreign Investors, as one of our guest speakers. And they're all, as he would say, all of his customers and clients, which are foreign investors, they're all looking at the United States, but they're still kind of looking at the more traditional investments like multifamily and industrial. Even though multifamily, depending on where it is, vacancy rates have gone up, prices have gone down, depending on where it is. In some places it's the opposite. And certainly industrial, depending on where it is, you've seen vacancy rates double in the last 12 to 24 months. But you still have strong demand, and keep in mind, we went from like 3% vacant and nationally industrial to like 6, which 6 is still a relatively healthy market. It's just not as healthy as it was before. So I think you will start seeing more foreign investors looking at, but they tend to be they have less risk tolerance to what they invest in. So, are they going to go buy an empty office building in New York City for 10 or 15 cents on the dollar? Maybe, but they tend to want to have more stable investments in New York City from that point of view. But right now, also, you're just seeing sort of what I call the disconnect of the market, where interest rates have gone up, values have gone down. So sellers think they want to sell for this, banks think they want to sell for that. And right now, buyers are like, well, I'm not doing it unless it's a great deal, or you self-finance, or they can finance it. So we've got a disconnect. So I don't know how long that's going to take. I mean, if you look back to the great financial crisis, 2008, 9, you got to remember, it took about 2 years before things started to dip and then go stabilize and go back up. So you could argue we're kind of like a year or maybe a year and a half into it, but we really aren't, because the lenders kind of did a blend and extend or blend and pretend on a lot of these assets. So now I think you're going to start seeing more assets come to market, more things going back to servicers. So, that's a long-winded answer to, I do believe that we'll see more foreign investment into the United States as this cycles, especially if they're long-term funds that can afford to wait. And, and in a certain regard, that's waiting longer than 5 to 7 years. And sometimes that doesn't work depending on where the money's coming from.
Yeah, well, we all know, everyone in the business knows that the value add type investment play needs, quite a few boots on the ground and super local market knowledge, and that's how those investments typically do get turned around. But even then, still take time, as you've said.
Absolutely. Time and money. I mean, you got to remember, I mean, it's in an office building right now, it's still one of the most expensive investments an owner can own, because not only you have to buy it and finance it, but you have to maintain it, you have to pay taxes, you have to operate it, you have to do tenant improvements, some cases capital improvements, and then you have to reset that against what would the market bear on rental rates. And and then the other thing is, a lot of tenants are looking at shorter lease terms too now. That's another thing, that because there's so much availability of space. So there's lots of things that play into this, that not all, as they used to say in retail, not all retail is bad retail, but there is and just like there's not all office is bad office, but there's a whole lot of bad office out there right now.
Yeah. Well, shifting subjects, we're in May. May's a busy month. I know you're going to be attending at least a portion of the upcoming Property Management Council meetings in San Diego. That's terrific. And then, of course, in a couple weeks, a bunch of NEI Global's crew will be gathered in Vegas for the annual ICSC. And I think we've got something like 50 or so different offices registered for the ICSC show. These are some good activities that's going on with some of the different practice groups within the company. And you're pretty connected to the property management growth. Any sense of how that's going? Just give them a little airtime, because I know they're working to put it together, and we've got, I think, 1.2 billion square feet under management collectively. It's a lot.
No, we do. And you're right. May historically is a very, very busy month due to quite a few industry events. And one is the SIOR conference is tomorrow down in Jacksonville. I'll be down there meeting with our Jacksonville member, NAI Hallmark, and then attending that event. And then, like you said, next week is the Property Management Council meeting, and they have record attendance out in San Diego. I think they have 60 different firms out of our 170 some firms represented there. Really, Beth and her leadership of that group has been tremendous. And we do have about 1.2 billion square feet of facilities and property management that our members do. That will continue to be a wonderful area, I think, for stability and growth at NAI. There's no question that, one of the things that we're tasking all the property managers with is that, look, you might have a property that's not doing well right now. So why don't you bring our capital markets team in, and we'll come in and help you talk to the owner or the lender, whomever is going to have control of the property. Because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to be talking to the owner or the lender and then find out that one of our good competitors is talking to the lender, and then it's sold. And then not only did you not participate in the sale, but then you didn't participate in the future leasing, and maybe you didn't participate in the future management. So we believe in, as we always say, all real estate at the end of the day, whether it's owned by a foreign entity or big pension fund or whomever, it's all local at the end of the day. I mean, someone's got to physically, I know you live in, the Bay Area. If the property's in the Bay Area, someone's got to manage it, someone's got to lease it, someone's got to construct it, someone's got to take care of it, someone's got to collect the rent, someone's got to keep, whatever the problems out of the building. So property management is a huge aspect of importance in this type of market, because people, whether it's the bank or an institution or someone that's taken the property back, the first thing they're going to ask is, well, how do I make sure my property doesn't deteriorate more than it already has? And so that becomes very important. And then the other thing that has to happen is property management has to come in and also then say to the new owner, if they're the new owner, well, here's what it's going to cost to maintain it. Here's what you need to do on a capital improvements point of view. Here's what you need to do for tenant retention. All those things go into that next plan, whether it's a 5-year plan or 10-year plan or longer plan. So we see the coordination between sales, property management, leasing, critically important during this time period where you have so many office buildings in particular and other buildings that are going to go through some pain for various reasons. And so I think NAI, because we operated so many both primary, secondary, and tertiary markets, are very well suited to do this. I think, Gary, as you know, we were born out of special servicing, in 2009 and 10, and essentially at one time, our members and us, we were selling, managing, and leasing over 300-400 properties a year from 2012, 13, 14, where, we were the whole, at any given time, we were part of that whole circle on that many properties a year. In some cases, the whole circle. We were manager, we were receiver, we were selling agent, we were leasing agent. And so, if an institution were to say to me, or a bank, how can you help us? I can say, well, we've been there, done this, and we can help you, whether it's in, Santa Rosa, California, up where you are, or Lubbock, Texas, or, Chicago, Illinois, or Washington, D.C. If you have assets in those areas that you need help on, it's sort of one-stop shopping. So I'm excited about being with the property management group. And then the other aspect about property management is what, like I always say, if you're doing a good job for someone down the street, call on your next door neighbor because they might be a good candidate. You can manage at least their building too. So I think there's great opportunity there. I would like to see that group get to 2.5 billion square feet. It's a heavy lift, but it can be done. It can be done. So we'll be there. And then right after that, we'll be at ICSC, as you mentioned, Recon, and based on what Lindsay and Michelle told me, I think we have 100 firms.
Oh, 100.
Yeah, which is great. So, and retail, as we know, is also industrial now because, if I buy something from Target and I get it delivered, I don't know where it's coming from. It's probably coming from their warehouse, not their store. So retail and industrial are kind of the same. So I think you're going to see great attendance at ICSC this year, and retail certainly back. Retail certainly way back as it was way off pre-pandemic. And so it's doing much better, except for pockets. As I said, bad retail is still bad retail, and might have to have a new plan.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's really super important for the NEI offices to be mindful of this connectivity component with the capital markets and management and leasing and sales. That's really one of your big advantages. So, shifting subjects, Jay, I wanted to pick up a little bit about the good news territorial expansion within the NEI platform, certainly domestically here in the States. Last year, of course, we had NEI Robert Lynn pick up the Houston market, and we've had Excel backfill San Antonio and Austin. These are all good trends, and more recently, NEI Caribbean rebranded to NEI Caribbean to take all of the Caribbean islands, except of course Jamaica and Puerto Rico. So, but other things are happening in that regard. I don't know if we're at liberty to mention some of the members that are expanding territories in the States now, but these are good trends. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, I think anytime we have an existing member taking over a new area, that shows to the strength of one, that existing member, and two, it shows to the strength of the brand of NAI Global. Nobody expands and takes on more responsibility within a brand unless they believe in the brand. So we really thank all of our existing members, as you mentioned, whether it's NAI Robert Lynn, NAI Excel, NAI Caribbean, who have taken pretty big chunks of new area to expand their own footprint, their own businesses. And we encourage that. And we also like the vote of confidence that they like the brand, because keep in mind, they didn't have to expand under our brand. They could have done lots of different things, but the opportunity came up. So we really appreciate that. We are seeing, more of our members thinking about expansion. As we like to say, we work with all of our 170 plus members all the time. Some of them right now, because the economic conditions are having some tough times, and we work with them throughout all these times, good and bad. And the other one that I would say has probably been a huge replacement of an open market, and also looking to expand, is our NAI Burns Scalo member in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They joined us in September. They completely rebranded their whole company, including their construction, their management, their brokerage, and their development company to NAI Burns Scalo. And now Jim Scala, who's the CEO and head of that company and owner of that company, is a guy that is very much all in or all out. And he's all in. He's all in on the brand. He's looking at different markets. He's looking to partner with different members. So we've been very fortunate to have some tremendous expansion, tremendous new members, recently. The job's never done. We still have some open markets where we'd like to fill some holes. So certainly, if anyone knows of anybody in Toronto or Boston or places like that, those are probably the biggest areas in North America. And, maybe I'd say Bakersfield and some parts of California in that inland or Imperial Valley area. The other thing is we've been having a lot of our members get referred into us by other members. So that's always a good thing too. Like, hey, you're an independent company, you should maybe look at becoming part of the NAI Global brand. And, that has always been our goal, as long as, we want to be the number one place where an independently owned and operated commercial real estate firm wants to be part of. We're not trying to conquer the world to be, like CBRE or JLL, even though they're wonderful and big competitors to us. But, we're trying to be the place where if you're an independently owned and operated commercial real estate firm, whether you're in the United States or anywhere, we have a place for you. And that's really, as we wake up every day, that's what we try to do. And we try to make it very meaningful for those firms that are independent to be bigger than they are by being part of our global brand, which is great.
Well, and that's for, with all the other disruption and uncertainty in the marketplace, it's good to have that kind of momentum at your back, but still there's work to do, as you said. Well, we've been speaking for a good 35, 40 minutes or so. Wrapping up, Jay, we always like to go back to kind of a 30,000 foot level, your outlook for the rest of the year and into 2025. You've been through what, 5 or 6 cycles in 41 years in commercial real estate?
Yeah, I think I'm pushing 6 or more. And I think that's where I'd like to say it. It's interesting. One of our good partners, Build Out, is run by a gentleman by the name of Chris Crisco. And Chris is a friend and very astute guy. And he recently said, there was a whole motto that was stay alive till 25, because maybe interest rates will come back down, maybe things will change. And he kind of nicely said, which I totally agree with, hey guys, it's not about stay alive to 25. It's about adapting to the new environment that we're in. And interest rates probably aren't going to go down significantly anytime soon. And even if they do, we're talking about 25 to 50 basis points. It's not a lot. And we're not going back to 3% interest rates. We're not going back to pre-COVID occupancy rates. This is the new world we're in. We're not going back to, keep in mind that, pre-COVID, there was no war in the Ukraine. Pre-COVID, there was no war in the Middle East. Pre-COVID, we did have an election during COVID, but, we've got an election here in the United States. That's created a lot of uncertainty. People are kind of like, maybe I should just wait till after that. So my projection going forward is get used to where we are. Stop thinking it's going back. Stop thinking that if more people go back to the office, it'll solve this problem. It won't. It will not solve the problems we have right now. Stop thinking about, the 22 to 35-year-olds are the problem. They're not. They're not the problem. It's about adapting to the new environment that we're in. It's in trying to, make as much money during the new environment that we're in, and stop wishing it would be like the old environment we used to be in. And so it's not going to happen. And that's true of just about any cycle I've lived through. You can't go back. You can only go forward. There's some wonderful things that, that technology allows us to do, whether in airplane travel allows us to do. The connectivity you can have with your customers, your clients, your owners, your users, anywhere, anytime, physically or via technology, is unlike it's ever been in the past. And you need to take advantage of that. You need to really work from that point of view. I think the rest of 24 is going to be flat. I think the investment sale market's not going to correct quickly. I don't think, as we talked, interest rates are going to correct. I think retail will continue to be good. I think multifamily, depending on where it is, could be good, could be bad, depending on interest rates and occupancies. I think industrial will be just fine, even with increased supply. Office, as I talked before, it's not stay alive to 25. It's hang on if you can and reset for the next 5 or 10 or 15 years. And if you can't reset, figure out from a tax point of view and from a risk point of view and a recourse point of view, you're going to see a lot of keys being given back to lenders, and that'll create some sales, which is great, but it's going to take some time to sort. It's not going to all sort at once. But, people are doing business. People are still spending money. The one thing that I'm a little concerned about in the overall economic picture is in the United States, credit card debt is at the highest level it's ever been in. and keeping in mind that retail spending makes up a huge component of our economy. So if the consumer stops spending because they're tapped out, that's going to be a problem. But that'll have to be dealt with and, go from there. But overall, I like the new environment we're in. We can't go back, get used to it. As Chris said, adapt and just move forward.
I like the message. It's realistic. I mean, the metaphor about living is be present, live the moment. So I think your outlook and approach to business is commensurate with that. And I think if most of us behave accordingly, we'll be fine. So I'd really like to thank you, Jay. We've had Jay Olshonsky again, the president and CEO of NEI Global speaking. It's been a wonderful podcast. Thank you for your time, and thanks for listening.
My pleasure doing this with you, Gary.
Thanks for tuning in to How's Biz, presented by NAI Global. Review, share, subscribe, and keep an eye out for the next episode.